Happy holidays! I'm Brenda Hassinger, and I'm a member of the Hagerstown Community College Alumni Association, and I'm one of 2 vice presidents of social activities for our group. The HCC Alumni Association is pleased to bring you a special program in the first of our series to help you get connected with the college during the COVID crisis, when we can't meet so easily in person. In the new year, the Alumni Association will be presenting programs, some interactive via Zoom, featuring a variety of topics that we hope you'll be very interested in. I would like to invite you to join us to these upcoming programs. Be on the lookout for emails from the HCC Alumni Association with more information on the next topic in the series in days to come, or to check the HCC Alumni webpage on the HCC website for information. This afternoon, we are very pleased to bring you our first foray into programming with a presentation on decorating your home with greens for the holidays. It is our desire that after you watch this, we can give you some creative ideas to brighten your home for the holiday season without going to the store to purchase supplies, but rather using things that you might find on a walk in your neighborhood, in your backyard, or in a friend's backyard. We're pleased to have as our guest today someone who's very well known in the community and at HCC, Denny Warrenfeltz. Denny, as we know him, has over 40 years of gardening experience, hearth cooking, and in floral design. And he's an instructor for the Hagerstown Community College Continuing Education Division. He's been a participant at the HCC Alumni Association Flower and Garden shows, doing lovely show gardens and seminars and beautiful arrangements for the past 25 years. We're pleased to say that Denny has not missed 1 year taking part. Denny is the owner, along with his wife Shawen, at Rooster Vane Gardens Florist Shop in Funkstown, Maryland, and he's known by all for his energy and his wonderful creativity, as we'll see today. Denny, we are very happy to have you join us for the first of our alumni series. So welcome, Denny. I'll turn it over to you now.
Thank you, Brenda. I think we're all ready to celebrate the holidays this year, especially with what we've been through, and to encourage everybody to, as much as we can, stay home, to use things and plant materials and items that we might have laying around our house and from our garden. So the first thing that I'm going to show you, and it's going to be a variety of items that you can use from your home garden or a neighbor's garden or along the roadsides. First is a grapevine wreath. You can get one of these ready-made, or you can gather grapevine, honeysuckle and other types of vines from the woods to make a wreath of your own. So we're starting with the pre-made wreath. Then we're going to take an assortment of greens that you can gather from your garden. For this, I'm using American boxwood. I'm going to be using some arborvitae and some fresh herbs. The rule to follow on this is to just cut small sprigs or slips of the greens, keep them going at the same direction in the wreath. Tuck them in very firmly, because as they dry, they're going to shrink and they may fall out. So we'll keep these going at this rate. Fill it in nice and full, because it will help hold them in place. And it's much better to start with one type of foliage at a time. So we'll work these in. So we've got the boxwood work throughout first. Then we're going to add in a little bit of the arborvitae. And by the way, most of these greens are ones that will dry in place. So as I will show you in a moment, this can be kept not only just as a fresh evergreen wreath, but it can be left to dry and use it for a long-term basis. The other advantage of this being a smaller wreath, it not only has to be used or can be used as a wreath to hang on a door or a wall, but you may also keep it flat on a table and use it as a centerpiece with a piece of statuary or a candle or hurricane in the center. So it can have multiple purposes or uses that way. So we have some of the arborvitae worked in. Also, from your vegetable garden or herb garden, we're going to work in some herbs. Here we have some sage. So we'll work that in. Now it's very important when you first make your wreath to let it, if you want it to dry and dry in place, let it lay flat for a couple of days so that the greens as they dry will dry down around the edge of the frame. Otherwise, you can hang it up right away. We're working in some rosemary as well. Again, this is much more quickly to be done than to take a traditional wire frame and hand wrap and hand tie all the greens into it. Not only does it take much less time, but it also takes fewer materials to work with. So if you have a limited amount, this really works out well. It's also a great thing to have kids or family members do if you're working on something as a gift for neighbors or for shut-ins, that type of thing. It works out really great. So we're working some more of the rosemary, a little bit of geranium foliage into this. So we'll just keep on working that into it. It's nice and full. Then once you get it to this point, it really doesn't look bad just like this with the greens, but you can also add some dry materials into it, pods and cones from your garden, and you end up with something like this. And we've just added a very simple bow onto it. You needn't even have a fancy bow. It can be an old piece of fabric, an old shirt, and you just tear it into varying strips and make it into a very simple bow. This has assorted dried flowers, some weeds, some hot peppers from the garden that have been added in. Very simple, and not only is this great for Christmas or for the holidays, but it's really something that's usable year-round, so it makes it really a multi-purpose type of decoration. We'll set these aside. The next thing, everybody's always looking for a centerpiece, and you needn't have a large or an expensive type of container. This is basically just a soup bowl. And in this soup bowl, I've worked in a little bit of Oasis. The Oasis is a soakable or wettable floral foam. You do need to make sure you have a wettable one, not something that will not absorb water. And I've taped that in place. Here again, we'll start with our greens. For this, we'll use, it's always good to let a few come down over the edge, so we'll add some arborvitae over the edge, the cascade down. Also a little bit of hemlock. You can use spruce, you can use white pine, any number of evergreens that you might have available in your garden. And you can think out of the box a little bit and use euonymus. You can use holly, just about anything that will stay green for a while. So just see what you may have about your garden or a neighbor's garden or the roadside together. So we'll work that, we'll work some more of the boxwood in. I love to use the herbs like the rosemary and the sage and the geraniums because they add terrific texture to the arrangement as well as wonderful fragrance. Here again, most of these will dry in place and last for quite a long time, so just keep plenty of water in your arrangement. So we're working these in. Take off any spent leaves, foliage. The boxwood really works out great because it holds up the longest. Also, it fills in nicely. And you can use American boxwood, you can use some of your other varieties of boxwood. Most people prefer not to use the English boxwood simply because of the scent or the odor that it has. Some people will find objectionable. We'll fill this in. It's very important in any arrangement when it's completed that you not see the mechanics. So when this is finished, you don't want to see the oasis. You really don't want to see the tape showing through. Now I'm using my fingers to snap the stems. You may find it much easier on your hands to just use clippers or a knife. And you needn't use just tips. You may use like little wings, sections of foliage like this, because it fills in more quickly. And again, we're letting some of that wisp down over the edge. We're going to add a little bit of winterberry, which can be found in the woodlands, or you may have some in your garden. Some English holly. Now the holly doesn't dry well, so it's not a good long-term item for a centerpiece like this, but it works out great for color and to give it a little bit more of the traditional holiday spirit. So we'll have that in. That alone doesn't make a bad centerpiece just with the foliages, but if you want to add a little bit more to it, and you needn't get anything special. If you just look around the house and through your Christmas decorations or in your kids' toy chest, you can just accent it with all kinds of little ornaments, candy canes. This I've put on a little pick to hold it in place. There's a little deer. You can give it a very sentimental heirloom effect by adding some little snowman will perch in there as well. When it's all finished, you can add some scraps. We'll set this aside. When it's completed, you'll have something like this. This we've added in some bows and also some sprigs of silk flowers that were scattered around the house. So you can add in really anything that you want and make them very country, very natural, very formal, whatever type of feel that you want that may go with the other decorations that you may have in your home. Another one which is always a favorite and well received, and sometimes people feel a little intimidated by it, but it's really not that difficult, and that is a boxwood tree. For a boxwood tree, we start with just a bowl here. I've used a plastic design bowl that florists use, but you may use just a cereal bowl or a salad bowl that you would have in your home. I've soaked a block of the Oasis, notched it off a little bit, and then taped it in place in the bowl. Some bowls may even have be secure enough you don't have to tape it in place. The important thing is forming up the tree with the boxwood, that it doesn't get too bushy, that it has a nice conical shape to it. For that, and here again I'm going to use the American boxwood. I prefer the American boxwood because it will dry in place nicely. A tree like this, once it's made, if it's kept out of a lot of sunlight, will stay pretty for up to a year or more. So we start with our height, then we'll start to get our sides in. You don't want to get these too long or else the tree will really expand out quickly. So as we add these in, keeping it very symmetrical, and what you want to follow is, you may have a yardstick handy, and just take a yardstick and have it from this tip up to the top of the tree. You really want to keep the greens or the foliage, the boxwood, within that line. Now, so far I'm speaking boxwood, but you could do it of herbs, you could do it of pine, any type of a green material. So what I'm going to do is just form this tree, just keep adding these sprigs to it. Now, what most people do is that they make a mistake when they get along this center area, they use larger pieces and it bows out. Through this center area here, you'll need to use much smaller pieces to keep it under control. The top ones are kind of going up, the bottom ones are flowing down, the ones through the center just fill in. So I usually will get this general shape like this. Then we'll turn it around. We'll take some more of our boxwood. Start again from side to side. You'll find if you're working from both sides at the same time that it will keep it even, so it's not leaning more to one side or direction or the other. You want it nice and full. You don't want to see any of the foam in there. And actually, the thicker you have the greens, the more they will hold the trims in place as you finish it off. We can use all these smaller pieces as well. So I think you'll see how it generally is going to be shaping up. And then you just kind of keep going around as you do this, adding in. Once you get it to a certain point, as you add more greens to it and finish it off, it's going to look more like this. So it has a nice, even, conical shape. It's fairly symmetrical. You can work with just the tree of the boxwood like this, or here again. You may add, again, I love my herbs. You can add some herbs. such as the sage, the rosemary. Again, it gives a nice texture. Some Senate geranium foliage. I brought some Nandina berry, which is very easy to grow in this area. It's reasonably hardy and it gets beautiful berries that turn a nice red color as the season progresses. And there are also other varieties, colors. So we'll work that so it's down in the foam to hold it in place. It really doesn't need to be in the water. It will just dry in place. And incidentally, when your tree is complete, to keep it fresh, to water it, you don't want to just pour water down over the top like this. And to just try to work it into the receptacle, it may not soak it all the way up. So just gently separate the top back a little bit, take a watering can, and pour the water down over the foam on a draining board. And that way the foam will keep wet, but you won't get the decorations on the perimeter wet and possibly ruin them. So we'll work a little bit more of this in here. Now, these I'm working with the stems. You can place them on little wooden picks. Or if you have a glue gun handy, things like pine cones and little pods that you may have around the house in the garden, you can just simply glue in place. Here again, we'll add a little bit of these, this silk baby's breath. You could use fresh baby's breath that would dry in place. You could use any type of silk flower. Kind of almost makes it look like snow. And I'm a firm believer that anytime you add a little bit of white to an arrangement, it really brightens it up and brings out the other colors. So we'll add that to it. If you want, you can always add in, again, some other silk flowers or some dried flowers, such as these straw flowers. We'll add those in to brighten it up, and if you want to give it a little bit more of a Williamsburg or colonial look, we'll add some yarrow. You could add just some little apples, get some inexpensive little apples at the farm market or the grocery store and add those into it. Just put them on little picks, wooden skewers or pieces of stem. And these needn't be that terribly expensive. If you have the greens and the materials nearby, the only investment really is a block of foam for $1 or so. So be very simple using things that you have readily available. We'll work a little bit of the coxcomb on there as well, or celosia. And then, if you want it, we can add a little bit of decoration to it. We'll just make a simple bow. You can either do small looped bows, such as this. Again, it can be ribbon or it can be scraps of fabric that you have, and just rip them and let them have a raw edge. It gives a much more natural look to it. Or raffia, or just pieces of twine. We can work bows in like this, or we can take our ribbon and, just as you might do for a regular tree, just think of the boxwood trees as you would a traditional Christmas tree. You can decorate them up in almost any fashion that you like, whatever suits your decorating style and what you may have available. So we'll just make a bow, add a couple of streamers. Take a piece of wire to hold it in place. Work this down in the center. And you can let your ribbons fall as they may, or if you want to give it a little bit more interest, you can just tuck them in among the greens as you go. And that finishes off your tree. You can keep it very simple or make it very elaborate. Here's another example of one similar with a little bit different treatment on the bow. Or again, you could even take the toys that you've used in the centerpiece and coordinate it so that it matches with that. So you can really, the possibilities are absolutely endless. So I hope this gives you some ideas as you're out raking the leaves. Look at the green plants, the herbs, the remaining vegetables that you have, and you may have some herbs, you may have some pieces of kale from the vegetable garden, all sorts of greens as well that you might use. The only caution I would do is if you're making your own wreath or gathering the things, just be careful that you don't get into any poison ivy because it's out there as well. So that's the only caution to be careful of. Make sure you know what you're working with and that you don't have any allergies to any of the plant materials. So I'm looking forward to the holidays, and I'm sure you are too, and just indulge and enjoy the senses and the fragrances and the textures of the season. Thank you.
Denny, that was wonderful. I'm sure we're all inspired now to go out and see what we can do.
Oh, great.
Probably not as quick as you did. But we thank you so much for being part of the inaugural event of our series. And thank you so much for watching our video today. And we really hope that you enjoyed it and that you'll be in touch with us with suggestions for future ideas. And if you'd like to be a future presenter, certainly contact the alumni office. The number is 240-500-2346. I know Lisa will look forward, and we will too, to your ideas and suggestions. And so now on behalf of the HCC and the Alumni Association, I'd like to wish you a very happy holiday season and also a wonderful and healthy new year.